Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. And I am joined tonight by the lovely Max Loaf. Hi, Max. How you doing?
You're not streaming.
I am streaming.
No, you're not. Not on Stellar Parallax, you're not.
Isn't it?
No, you're not.
I'm sure it is because it says live at the moment. So there you go.
I don't know where it's live, but it's not on our channel.
It's not on your channel? I'm sure it's live on our channel.
No, stream.
Are you sure it's not live? I can see it live. It says it's live. We'll see if we get chat. We'll get chat. Hey, chat.
Are we back now?
Is it live?
Yeah. Do we have any links?
Do we have any links to the stream?
The links should be published.
Where?
Where?
It was published in the other day. I published it, and I've got 5 concurrent viewers. So maybe we'll see if it's live or not live. I need to kind of grab the link. Let me see.
Because we're not seeing it on the Stellar Parallax YouTube channel.
Weird. It's definitely saying live on my screen at the moment. It's live. Alexander Harper is saying it's live. So there you go.
Are you sure you're on the right channel?
We still need links.
We still need links. Okay, chill.
This is the worst stream ever.
Bring me pictures of Spider-Man.
This is how
Cisco.
it begins. This is how it begins.
Please stand by. We're experiencing technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties? I think I can't get why you can't see it, but everybody else is on it, so I don't understand.
Well, I mean, everyone is 5 people, Keith. It's not quite everyone else.
Well, not quite everybody. Okay.
So I am literally right now on the Stellar Parallax channel.
YouTube. The last thing posted was Prime Directive Episode 1.
Not sure. It's saying refresh.
Are you not just streaming on Twitch?
I'm not just streaming on Twitch. I promise you, it's live. Let me have a look. Is it?
Are you actually streaming on Twitch?
I know why. I can see why. What's happened?
Are you streaming on somebody else's bloody channel now?
No, it was marked as unlisted for some really weird reason, and that would be why. Can you have a check now? Can you check now? Is it appearing? Maybe.
Hey, there it is.
Whew. After
Are
all
we
that
streaming
effort,
on Twitch at the same time as this then?
You might also want to,
just zoom in, just not do anything ever.
No, just
give up
post
the streaming.
Just post the thing again in the stream chat, maybe with an ad here.
Could you post the thing in the stream chat for me?
Is it up to me now?
I am going to leave it up to you, Max.
Where the hell is the stream announcement?
You got the skills.
Where's the stream announcement panel?
It's.
This is
now announcement and uploads.
I think we merged it with announcement and uploads and updates.
It's hard work, guys. It's hard work. This was an accident, clearly. That it should have been public, but I don't know why it was marked as unlisted. Because I did make it public. I streamed it live. Anyway, hello, Not Sure. I hope you're well. We'll see if we'll get more people.
Who the hell's not sure? I'm
guessing he's not sure whether we're live.
I'm not sure either.
There's 8 concurrent viewers, so the viewers have gone up.
That's also me, Caesar. That's also me, Caesar, and Saunders. I know.
But at least people are about to watch this back. So there you go. There's now 9 viewers. See, it's going up.
That's Gold just joining.
That's Gold just joining. There's very few viewers.
I think 3 of those are just all of us actually joining the stream.
Have you managed to post a link? That is the question.
Yes, I am posting links.
Just spam at everyone now. Just get them in. Anyway,
I'm not doing it everyone's. That's just a bit mean.
No, I did it here.
You did it here. We've got people that are live. Come see it. Please don't experience technical difficulties. It's live. We're fine. God.
Well, we're not fine, but it is live. But that's a whole different discussion.
I think
we will be shamed by this forever.
What's more of a problem, actually, is the fact that the YouTube chat is disconnected, and we should fix that as well.
I can see. Ash Wallace said, "And me, lol."
Hooray! Another one.
So we will just hide the YouTube chat from the screen for now while I fiddle. So yes, let's restart that, shall we? So hello, Max. How are you?
I don't know. I've just been trying to watch this stream, but this link is not. Doing quite all right. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm good. Other than obviously learning, I thought it was going to be a great week this week. I was like, I got all my bugs out of my streaming last week, but clearly not. Clearly, I've still managed to mess it up. But I'll third time lucky, right? So next stream will be even better. Caesar, good to see you again. How are you?
Hello again. I'm well. I mean, we're talking about Klingons, so everything is great, and today is a good day to die.
Today is a good day to die. Guys, I'm going to pre-warn you. There's going to be a serious amount of Klingon accents happening during the stream, so you may want to shield your children's ears during this time, or you may want to put headphones on, or you may want to take them off. It depends how loud you get. Like that. So there we go. We're also joined by Mr. Saunders. Hello, Mr. Saunders. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well. How's it going?
I'm good. So good, man. I think it's great to sort of be on your favourite faction, right? This is one of your favourites, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Dominion and Klingons. They're the bread and butter of my play.
Absolutely. And they're one of the earliest factions in the game. I think were they the second match you did, or was it the Borg you did first, and then the Klingons?
No, the Klingons were second. The Borg, I think, were the last.
Yeah.
The Borg or the Romulans were last. Well, with the exception, of course, CTA, but that was this is the expansion.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got the Klingons in here now. Look, there was a couple of comments last week about how people might have thought that the Feds were so powerful that the other factions wouldn't be able to stand up. So what I would say, guys, is you haven't seen the whole thing yet. You haven't seen the other factions yet. So
if anything, guys, Keith has got like a really soft spot for the Romulans. So if anything's going to be overpowered, it's going to be them.
That's why I've left Romulans to later.
They're definitely not.
Yeah, but the Klingons are a very fun faction. So as per every stream, guys, I can't see your chat at the moment, so I do apologise. So guys, if there's a question, Max, just throw it in there as we go. As with the last stream, what we're going to do is we're going to do something similar that we did with CTA all that time ago, like we did last week for the Federation. We're actually going to take you through all the ships. We're going to talk about the designs. We're going to talk about the lore, because Max is here this week, so we can talk about designs. We're going to talk about the abilities, and Tom and Rob are going to flip between again to give us a little bit how they use the ships. We're going to talk to you about how they now counter other ships, so we're going to try and reference what these ships are good against, and to do that we'll use Federation ships hopefully as examples, because that always seems to be the best way to do it. If we tell you it can blow up Voyager, then you'll know it can blow up Voyager, and Voyager can be blown up now, which is good, right?
I mean, can it really?
Yeah, we nerfed that ablative armor a little bit, just a little bit. Rob, do you want to just give us an overview of the general Klingon faction playstyle and how the Klingons now play in Armada 3?
Sure. So I think we have kind of a spectrum of different strategies for the factions. So you have the Federation, which is kind of like an economic, well-rounded faction. We've already gone over them. I would say the Klingons are kind of like the aggressive side of the economic coin. They're not like the Dominion, where they're just about pure aggression and pure pumping out ships. That you do want their economy, but you do want to aggressively expand. The biggest thing I think that kind of defines the Klingon playstyle is their early front-loaded mineral resource incomes. So the faster you expand and the faster you take your neutral asteroids, the faster you can produce more ships and get ahead in the mid-game. That's kind of how the Klingons play.
Yeah, and it's fair to say we've done quite some major changes to the way the research tree interacts. And I think before we dive into the ships, it's worth pointing out how those research changes now interact with a faction. And this was actually something, Rob, that you had a big hand in helping to design and test with the balance testers, right?
Indeed. The Klingons are one of the factions I think I've put the most time and effort into.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, guys, now what we've done is we've actually made the Klingons feel a little bit more fun when it comes to their research tree. And in difference to the Federation, what they get is they get a research upgrade rate increase and a research cost decrease based on their ship frames. So the further you go up their research with their ship frames, the more you're going to benefit. And this is to kind of demonstrate that factional gameplay where the Klingons are all about getting out the biggest, baddest ships as quickly as they can. And it puts them very much just a little bit on par with the Romulans, maybe a little bit over the Romulans in terms of the speed that they can pump out research and the reductions that they get, which generally makes playing the Klingons very fun and very fast. So again, it's worth investing when you're investing in your research tree to look at the space frames to just boost all your other research, because the Klingons are all about researching, as we know, mostly into weapons of war. That's their shtick, that's their kind of culture and background. And I think that sticks very true, doesn't it, Max, to how Star Trek tends to portray the Klingons, right?
Yeah, Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, they're a pretty honourable species, and I mean, how would you describe like the Klingons in their kind of warlike nature?
I think the Klingons are really a society that requires war to thrive. You know, in the real world where you see a jump in technology, you know, during times of war, I think they took that to the extreme, combine that with a warrior culture, and I think you've got a good description as the Klingons.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this war,
with science being put in the back burner.
Science is definitely put in the back burner. But that being said, they've got some pretty cool abilities, and that's kind of what we're going to come on to. So without further ado, I'll just start tonight with the Scout. And again, I always start with the Scout myself because there's really not much to say about Scouts. This is
that's the old model.
It is. How do you pronounce this one, Max?
Nukdush.
Nukdush. Okay, so the Nukdush class Scouts.
Actually, I think Chris has the better pronoun because Chris is secretly here. Sorry, Gull's secretly here. He just doesn't want to say stuff. Gull, how do you pronounce the ship name again?
It's a Nukji N Jukji.
Yeah, there you go.
A Nukji. Yes, Gull is actually here as well, guys. So
there's something to say about this model though, and it's I don't want to put a downer on the stream, but there's this ship. If you could look at the Feklar and the Corral real quickly next.
So there's the Feklar here, yeah.
And then there's the Corral. The
models over here.
The models that I used for this were made by and the Shockwave Titan as well, I think. Were made by an Armada 2 community member called Ad Moorman, who is a modeler who released a lot of models to the public, but he passed away, I think, last year or the year before.
That's sad, yeah.
It might have been a bit longer ago, but it's crazy. When I saw them, it's like just hit me again. It's like, oh yeah, it's a member of the community that's gone.
Yeah. And we've had our as we mentioned last week, we've had our own personal loss in Armada 3 as well with modelers.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So yeah, this is an old model, and this is why it makes Max's soul kind of like feel sad. Seeing it. But nonetheless, it is your Scout class. It has the standard Explore. It can detect minefields. And it has a system integrity. As you know, as our ships get damaged, they become worse. Some can't even fire as they take damage. And that is the Nukduj. But that leads me nicely onto the first ship, which actually I'm going to start with Tom on today, if I can find one. Where is it? They're hiding. I am going to start with you, Tom. We're going to start with the Burrell, the most
Burrell.
famous one.
The classic bird of prey
that
absolutely wasn't then just copied and pasted and upscaled for
Might want
the
to slow
original
down the
series
rotation keys.
ship classes. The Burrell is, it's your basic, your starting frigate. These days, the Brel has been altered. So following the same theme as the last stream where we spoke about the armor types and the damage types, the Brel very much follows the same vein as the Saber, and that is a trend we've followed for most of the factions. So it's an anti-medium vessel with very light armor type. It's your standard, relatively cheap, quick, mobile harasser, as well as then anti-medium light frigate. Its abilities, crippling shot, just the one. You do have to research it in the tech tree, but it is a cheap and early access to an ability disable ability. So it will disable your enemy's abilities, or the target the ability is fired at for 8 seconds. And it will deal a small amount of additional damage on top of its own damage weapons. There's not really much else to say. It's quick, it's mobile, it can cloak. I believe Rob was saying earlier about how there was some complaints, possibly about the way cloaking works now. From what I understand, the cloaking hasn't changed all that much, with the exception of the battle cloak. So you can still manually cloak these ships, go and harass, use it to disengage, and all those fun cloaking features.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that tends to catch people off guard is, unlike other factions, the Romulans and the Klingons, because they have cloaks. Not that Klingons are cowards, but they do have it built into them, so that they will try to cloak out if they can, once they've taken like serious damage. It's a way of just preserving their lifespan a little bit. So they do have like an auto cloak ability as well, and that's mainly for the AI, but it works quite well and gives you that kind of sense of, as best we can in this mod, because in Sins in general there isn't a true cloak of getting the feel of Klingons appearing out of cloak and attacking. So we tried to make it feel a little bit more fun with that particular ability, but it does catch some people off guard. So that's it. Someone has said, Corey says, are Klingons Welsh now, Chris? Chris is not going to say anything.
Yeah, why not?
They are. Okay, apparently Klingons are Welsh. So there we go. So that's the Burrell. Shall we go on to our next frigate if I can find it? Well, I can find one of them anyway. We'll start with the Predator, Rob. What is the Predator? What is it about? What does it do?
I think the Predator is probably the best planet bomber, like the sort of best planet bombing frigate in the game. Its ability is really nice for just cutting through the population a little quicker. Planetary terror increases that bombing damage, and that's pretty much all it does. It's simple in that way. I mean, it can be used in combat. It has medium armor and anti-light weapons, so it's decent against corvettes, but its stat line is not going to be overwhelmingly effective it will go toe-to-toe with them, but it's not going to dominate them. So it's mainly just for smoking planets very quickly.
And Max, this is one of your earlier models, I think, isn't it?
No, it's not mine. It's one of Star Trek Legacies.
Oh, right.
It was used in the Enterprise era in Legacy, but it's an obvious TMP era design if you look at the mesh.
It's got
it's got every telltale sign of a TMP era vessel. It's just it's like a squat. It's like a Katinga went through a steamroller.
I always wonder like how structurally sound this neck is. It's like the thinnest neck ever, right?
Yes,
White Katinga.
It's very structurally sound. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the Predator. Shall we move on to another frigate if I can find one? They are out there, guys. Trust me. They're not in. None of them are in order as always. There we go. Chook Bear, Tom. The Chook Bear.
Chook Bear, your light artillery frigate.
Yeah.
It used to be one of my favourite ships. I think possibly it might still be. It's hard to say. Again, following the same vein as the Steam Runner, it's your long-range light artillery frigate. Anti-very heavy weapon type, light armour. So you want to counter it with quick, lightly armed ships. So your anti-strike craft frigates will do okay against a Chook Bear. Predators, Raptors, in terms of the Klingons, for the Federation, for example, an Intrepid will rip apart Chook Bears very nicely. I shouldn't have said that. But
the Red Wings make it go faster.
Yes, red makes things go faster. It's your cost-effective early game heavy hitter. You want to use it to attack and destroy turret clusters. It'll be effective against unupgraded outposts and starbase. I believe it should outrange unupgraded starbases and outposts, for example. So you can use it against those sorts of rushes.
Pretty good at killing buildings too, if you have like 10 of them.
Yeah. So the ability is just a debuff to hull restore rate, so it's not anything particularly special. But its damage type alone makes it a pretty valuable utility for punching upwards in the early game.
And Max, I suppose with the design element, why the fixed straight wings in comparison to the Burrell, for example?
This is literally just copy pasted from Armada 1 and 2 design wise. I had no input in the design of this.
Yeah.
The only thing that I wanted to make sure I kept was the Red Wings on top. They had it in Armada 2. Why? I don't know. Let's see what Armada 2 says. The Shujbech is one of the newest additions to the Klingon fleet, equipped with a cannon capable. Okay, that's distant planets. Blah blah blah. Pulse relay. Okay, so it's literally nothing in the description, but it's basically because it was like that in Armada 1.
Okay, so
and
this is basically just as a kind of, again, to carry on that legacy of Armada 1 and 2, which is great. Which you guys know is a lot in that mod as well. So, we do this a lot in the mod.
There's a reason it's called Armada 3,
Yeah,
and not...
absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the Chuck Bear. Rob, we're on to the Valcon class.
Yep, so this is your anti-strike craft ship. It's got anti-very light weapons. It goes pretty well against the starter frigates of each faction, so it'll do all right against your Brels. It'll do all right against your Sabers. But it's mainly there to get rid of strike craft. It has abilities as such, and it has the ability to decloak, so it's a good little ship.
It's a good little ship. And Max, is this a legacy model?
Yes, it is. It's one of the nicest legacy models that they had, which is in turn based on a facet design, although the facet design had a single nacelle sticking out of the bottom, so I'm glad they went with this double nacelle look. I really love this design from just how it looks. It looks like a quick, nimbly little Klingon ship, instead of a giant-ass battle cruiser, but you can still see the clear Klingon design lineage, like somewhere really nicely in between a Katinga and a Bird of Prey.
I love the green glow from the nacelles here, so that's really nice.
Yeah, can't wait to remake that one for AOTF2.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So that's the Valcon class. Let's see if we can... there it is. I'm going to go to Rob again, because I know this is one of his favourite ships. So Rob, the Raptor class.
Yeah, the Raptor's really unique. It's one of the only corvettes in the game that actually punches at the same level. So this is an anti-light ship. And that's really interesting. The Raptor is great because it has a stacking buff, and because when it dies, it buffs the ships around it to do more damage. So this little thing is like the superiority Corvette fighter. I love this thing. It's because it punches the same, which is different than everything else. It kind of fills a really unique role because it's so easily accessible and so cheap and so effective at killing your opponents. Yeah, Corvettes.
Light armor. Yeah.
And what would you... So would you put this up against, for example, bug ships, for example, or would you...
Oh yeah, this would destroy Scarabs because of the way that Scarabs have been changed so that they're actually anti-heavy. So they're not going to do very effective damage versus these. These are going to do very, very effective damage versus them. These will tear Scarabs to pieces.
And I think this is the first ship example where we're starting to see those factional differences, guys, where you're going to see that actually, if you play different factions, not each class of ship, even though it is a Corvette class, as Rob's saying there, this is good against other Corvettes. Whereas if we look at the Miranda would not be good. It's okay, but it's not great against other Corvettes like the Raptor. So you're starting to see those variations between the factions come into play. And Max, sorry, go on. Yeah.
I was going to say, this gives you an early option against Corvettes, where you normally would have to wait until your Tier 3 cruiser. This is something you can get basically right off the bat.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to see players build more Raptors moving forward. And Max, I don't know about this model, actually. Where was the...
Legacy model. It was a Raptor refit, which is a TNG era design for Legacy.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
It's a nice take on the... it's like more armored version of the Enterprise era Raptor, really, and just a nice model overall.
Model as well. It's aged quite well as a model as well.
Yes, it has. I think it's because I think this is one of the this was before Substance Painter and those kind of programs, but I think this is where they got really close.
Yeah,
it's got ambient occlusion bakes and everything, so which a lot of the early Legacy models don't have. And there's a lot of shadow
writing on the hull.
There's a lot of shadow trickery as well, so that's...
It's a lovely... It's one of my favourite Klingon ships, I will say. I think we've done every core frigate. Have we done every frigate? Have I missed any, guys?
I mean, unless we want to talk about the colony frigate, which I don't think there's much
Nobody
really
cares
to be
about the
said.
colony frigate.
Cover the colony frigate.
No, we won't do that.
Where did this model come from, Max?
Yeah. Yeah, so much fun. So, Rob, Katinga.
This is another unique one for the Klingons, and this is kind of the theme of the Klingons, is that their ships tend to punch up. So where normally your Tier 3 light cruiser would be good against Corvettes, this one is good against other light cruisers, and it has an anti-heavy torpedo. So this bad boy is very flexible at sort of dominating the mid-game. This is probably the most powerful, sort of early mid-game cruiser in the mod now.
So, and Max, you want to tell us a little bit about the Katinga model? Because I think you
Okay,
changed
yes.
this one, didn't you?
This is where it actually gets interesting. Now, this is one of the this is the old version of this model. I've redone the model at this point. At least I've updated the specs of this because there are some errors in the model's texture. But this is one of my ones that I did from scratch.
Yeah.
And I used a literal fuck ton of behind-the-scenes images, which zoomed into the smallest parts of the model. And I tried to get everything as right as possible. There are some things which if you look at the back of the head, on the top, there's that gray grill.
Yeah.
Now that is actually supposed to be a non-symmetry detail, which isn't on this model, but on my updated one it is. And I really put some effort into trying to get all the plate details right, the windows right. This version of the Katinga is actually not the same as it is in the motion picture. This one has the nacelles like the Kronos 1 is, because that's also the type of nacelles that it had during DS9. Now, the normal Katinga nacelles are rather fat and bland, and don't have the green glowies, and it's something I really want to get right. If you look to the outer side of the nacelle, you'll see a really... maybe if you see if you can get into the light, maybe the other side.
Is that a good angle there?
No. I meant it still needs the outer side, but it's in the shadow, so you can't really tell on stream how it looks. But there's a lot of detail in there.
It should. I'm just a little bit ahead of you, so you should hopefully see it pop round on the stream in a second.
I think it's frozen on Discord then.
There we go. Potentially.
Yeah. No, it's. I'm still seeing the inside of the nacelles on Discord.
Okay. Well, anyway,
it's detailed as hell, and it was really fun to do, and I'm really glad with the results in the end. Yeah, there you go. That's that's those little fins and everything. It was this thing's gone through Substance Painter at this point, and it looks even better than it did at this point.
Yeah. And where can they see the new Katinga model? Is that in AOTF 1 or 2?
2.
2. There you go.
So they can't see it yet,
but they will see it. I
think we've posted some behind the scenes pictures on ModDB. Let me see if I can. Pop those into chat.
So if you think this looks good now, guys, you wait for ATRF2, because that's going to be even better there on AOTF2. So good stuff. But yeah, as Rob said, this is probably the most powerful mid-game cruiser now, as it deserves, rightly so, because it's one of the fan favourites. We know this. So the Katinga class, ladies and gentlemen. Tom, shall we talk a little bit about we're going to go... We're not doing this in really any particular order, but we'll do the Death Right next, Tom.
The Death Right. So, yeah. The Death Right... There's a little bit of history of the Death Right, really. Back in the Final Frontier release, essentially the gameplay meta was that the Death Right never got built.
Yeah.
Because it was in a weird little spot, whereby on the bottom end you would have the Katinga murdering enemy vessels, doing what it does best, and then as you upscaled, you would basically just skip the Death Right and just go straight onto the Kvek for that even higher damage output. I wasn't satisfied with that, and I bugged Keith incessantly. And we essentially reworked the Death Right into a sort of mid-game armoured tank, essentially. It had a reworked damage type, which is still the case now. And so, whereas now the Katinga is sort of your up puncher, the Death Right kind of fulfills the down puncher role in a way. It still has its heavy armor type, so it's still a heavy cruiser. It's still very strong. It has the Bastion shield ability to reduce frontal damage. But whereas the Katinga wants to punch up, the Death Right will happily punch down with anti-light disruptors and an anti-medium torpedo weapon type. So it makes it a very effective multi-role cruiser. So whereas the Katinga multi-rolls up, the Death Right will multi-roll down and will help clear the field of things like Mirandas, Steam Runners, Centaurs, Norways, Intrepids, Curries, and just complements the inverse of the Katinga while still acting as a tank vessel. And then in addition to that, it does come with a flak burst ability, which whilst not enormous. When you're fielding 10 to 20 death rights, that stacks up damage very nicely and is very good for helping to clear out enemy strike craft. Now that strike craft are sort of making a little bit of a comeback now in the main meta, so definitely keeping these in your fleet to complement sort of Valcons, to not only act as damage sponges, but also to help clear out your strike craft that you're likely to face.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, I think you mentioned it, but it also has a really good frontal damage reduction ability called Bastion Shield, which is kind of like a smaller variant of the one that you find on the Titan, which is just a good way of keeping damage down. As you know, Klingons tend to have most of their weapons towards the front of the vessel, and so most of their damage is applied in attack runs, as opposed to the Federation, which have phasers that fly everywhere. So again, very good ship. Max, you want to tell us a little bit about the model and its history?
A legacy model. It's funny enough because the head is based on one of the there are schematics for the Vorcha. I mean, you can really tell that this is a modified Vorcha. The head is actually one of the alternate heads for the Vorcha class in canon, somewhat, or at least in some schematics, where this is an electronic countermeasure head. And I think they did a really nice job into kit bashing it with kind of like Katinga-esque bits, especially near the back, to make it look more like a different ship. And I think that's basically what their design process was on this one. Not really much to tell.
Yeah, it's a nice ship. I always like the nacelles on this one as well. They're just really good.
My only gripe is there's the pylon connection. It's just like bolted on.
Just bolted on. So that's the Death Right. Let's find. It's not a great ship, but we'll find it. It's hidden. It's small. The Corelli class. Rob. Corelli.
Yeah, so the Corelli class is obviously your carrier, your capture ship. It's medium, anti-medium, so what it's going to be good at is going out, getting those early asteroid belts, like those early sort of neutral asteroids I was talking about earlier. And it'll do okay against your opponent's ships that are out there grabbing them as well. It needs support to really shine. You can use it for harassment if you fly into the sides of wells to kind of snipe buildings with its heavy fighters, and that's pretty much it. It's really a simple ship.
Yeah, I think, Max, it's fair to say this is probably one of the most ugly ships in the Klingon fleet.
It's funny though, because again, this is a legacy model.
Yeah.
And this is the nicer version of the ship, but the pod I added myself underneath.
Yeah.
It was called the D3 in Legacy.
Yeah.
But like early promotional shots for Legacy showed this thing in like a way lower quality mesh. So that's pretty much all I know about the ship. It's just an odd duck.
It is. It just was like we took it. Obviously, that was the intention. We've got a bolt-on bay, isn't it? Held on by two pylons.
Yeah, I mean, it helped also with the empty space in the design.
Yeah, absolutely. So
there's a kit bash and a hell out that one. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's go on to
let's go to the Thalar.
The Thalar. Where is the Thalar? There's the Thalar.
I see it.
There's the Thalar. Tom, what can you tell us about the Thalar?
It's your support cruiser. It's your auxiliary cruiser, essentially. Like the Intrepid, Tachyon Pulse Scan. If you need to decloak some pesky Romulans, that's your go-to ship.
They act without honor.
It's fairly simple ability. Repair teams, hull repair and shield repair. Obviously, the Klingons, their ships are meant to be strong in terms of the hull and armor strength, not necessarily the shields. So that follows the same trend in terms of having better hull restore rather than shield restore. Of course, it's got forward swept wings that helps it go 10% faster.
The teeth also make it go faster.
And the teeth, gotta. It's not a toothless Grishnar cat. It is a toothed Grishnar cat.
It's funny though, design-wise. If you look at the back, you see the engine, Keith.
Yeah.
In the original design, the Facet design, it has a more Bird of Prey style engine, and I like this is a legacy model, so I didn't change it. But I honestly think it would have looked better with like a Bird of Prey style engine.
Instead, it got a jet turbine engine.
Yes, I mean jets of course are faster because they're called jets and it sounds fast.
Exactly.
Also,
So in terms of In terms of the raw stats of the ship, heavy armor, anti-medium weapon type. It's not going to replace the Katinga, but it will support your Katingas. It will support your death rights, and it just improves the longevity of your fighting force.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we have buffed the healing bits, as I said in the last stream, a little bit. So they're not up to the CTA standards where having loads of these just mean you won, but having them is really helpful. So, I would have a few of these in your fleet just to do repairs as you're moving your fleet around. They're quite handy to have around. So yeah, and then handy just because of the decloak, another way to decloak as well. Rob, shall we talk about the Cavort class?
The Cavort. I love the Cavort. This has been changed to be along the lines of the Defiant from the last sort of episode, where it's kind of it's gained that very light armor type the Defiant has. This, I believe, follows the same pattern, but let me just double check to make sure I'm 100% sure. So this one has light armor. So it's got the Corvette armor, and then it's got anti-heavy and very heavy weapons. So its disruptors are anti-heavy, its torpedoes are anti-very heavy. And that just makes this kind of a great ship for dealing with fleets that are comprised mostly of sort of late-game cruisers, things like Akiras, things like Falcons, things like Kaveks.
And how will Akiras do against, say, if you're fighting a Corvette against a Cavort against an Akira, can the Cavort hold its own?
Oh yeah, the Cavort will do really well because the Akira is designed to shoot heavy ships, and because this is down so far in the sort of combat rainbow, it's going to gain it'll take a lot less damage from an Akira's anti-heavy weapons, and it will deal a lot more damage itself. So this thing will do very well against that kind of ship. It'll do very well against your Akiras and your Manticores, your sort of heavy late-game ships.
And Max, I believe we saw the Cavort really in all its glory as a kind of heavy bird of prey in the episode where the Enterprise was in that different kind of reality timeline.
We saw it in a couple of places. We saw it most prominently for the first time, I think, in yesterday's Enterprise, where it was also, I don't think it was labeled there as a Cavort. I think that's came later down the line. I think actually in DS9 they labeled it as a Cavort.
Yeah.
Might be mistaken on that. But we also saw it prominently in Redemption, where Gowron's flagship is under attack by Duras' ships, and then Curran comes into the rescue.
Yeah. And I suppose, Max, do you feel, obviously this design is very similar really to the bird of prey and the chick bear, but did you make this one, or was this one you pulled?
This one is done by Kopfjager.
Yeah.
And it's basically an up-detailed stock legacy model, but very up-detailed, like mesh-wise. If you look at the torpedo launcher and the details on the back, there's a lot more. You can't really tell on this, but there's a lot more detail that that's there, which wasn't there. I recently redid the model completely, made a new one from scratch for AOTF 2, which, oh god, that thing turned out great. But yeah, it was. This is a good mesh, and Chris did a good job on it. And I recently updated the sounds for it, also in A3, because I did it for AOTF 2, and it's one of those things I figured let's bring it also over to. We'll show that later.
We'll show that in a bit. Yeah, we've got some lovely new sounds to this now for the pulse disruptors, so it's great. And Kopfjager did quite a few models from memory, right, for the mods, I think.
Yeah, he did a lot of minor faction stuff or neutrals. He did all the Bajoran ships, including all the variations like the Husnock and stuff. He did our Prometheus.
Yeah.
He did our Birds of Prey, and I think a bunch of other stuff, but I just don't know at the top of my head all of them, it's been so long. This has been literally around 10 years ago. Oh my god, it's been 10 years.
So many people have sort of given to this mod over the years, and we're very thankful to everybody that's contributed. Tom, tell us a little bit about the Cavette class.
I mean, how up to date are we going to talk? About 45 minutes ago.
About 45 minutes. we won't mention the 14 minutes.
I suppose that just highlights the ongoing process really of the mods update as we progress through. So the Quebec
regress.
Silence you. The Kvek is quite literally your Akira mirror. It is the same weapon type, same damage type, so very heavy armor and anti-heavy weapon. It is your late game cruiser. Essentially, the Kvek follows the same rule of tanky, very good damage output, and it has that mini Negvar nickname for a reason. So to just go back to the how recent the update changes were, as we were preparing for the stream, we were refreshing ourselves as to where and what everything was, and we were having a look at the To Glory ability on the Kvek, and the To Glory as a design theme is a damage boost ability. So you gain some additional weapon cooldown, so you're boosting your damage output, and you get some shield penetration efficiency, which is a subtle damage buff to go through the shields and apply damage to hull directly, which also helps to bypass shield mitigation. So it's a nice ability. The downside, of course, it comes with some debuffs. And one of the things that had occurred to me and was echoed by Rob when we were discussing it, the Kvek has a habit of dying. It didn't have much longevity. And I think we found the reason for that in the form of a 10% shield mitigation debuff.
Yeah.
And so for those who are not too clued in, shield mitigation is a stat on the shields, which is a direct percentage reduction of damage. So 100% shield mitigation is a 100% damage reduction. Once something hits 100% shield mitigation, it won't take any more damage. And so the inverse is also true. In this case, the ability applies a minus 10% shield mitigation to itself as part of a damage debuff to itself. You're diverting power to the weapons from your shields, your engines, etc. So you take some more damage. And that, I believe, is the reason why the Kvek has consistently in the past frustrated myself and others, in the sense that it feels like it dies too quick.
Yeah.
We've now updated that. It still is maintaining the damage reduction, because damage reduction isn't a 100% value. It's more of a 50% value, as I understand it. So 100% damage reduction is actually only about 50% damage reduction. And then it scales weirdly from there.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've removed the shield mitigation entirely. And shifted that a little bit over to the damage reduction, so that's a little bit higher, and instead applied a turn rate debuff to the Kvek. So the idea that you're drawing power from not only shields, but your engines as well, for that damage output. And for a gameplay perspective, what that then means is if you're playing, for example, the Dominion or Cardassian Federation, and where you've got factions with multi-bank damage spread, and you want to get inside your opponent's fleet and inside their battle line to reduce their frontal damage output effectiveness, if a Kvek procs that ability as you're charging in, you'll then get inside their firing line, and the Kvek won't be able to turn very effectively, and so it will lose some of that firepower because your opponent has taken that decision. And so that's how we've opted to change that ability structure. You can still bypass it because of the Katinga, and this is where having different ships in your fleet to benefit each other comes in. The Katinga's got the 75% thruster control ability buff, which increases the turn rate by 75%. So when that's active and affected on a Kvek with the To Glory, the Kvek still has plus 25% to its turn rate, so it could still turn more efficiently. But if you don't have the Katinga there, you are looking at a flat debuff. You're not going to balance it out at all. So that's part of encouraging the fleet cohesion and the ability usage. And hopefully, fingers crossed, pending some testing, the Kvek should last a little bit longer now in those fleet battles, and should stand up to its peers a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I just want to point out how mathematically shield mitigation would work if you were at, say, 90%. All of the damage, if you're at 90% shield mitigation, is happening within that 10% left. So actually 10% becomes 100%. And so if you were to go from 90 to 91, even though only 1% has changed, you actually take 10% less damage. So shield mitigation is massive. And the closer you get it to 100, the more every single point counts. Where if you were at 98, if you got one more point in, it would be a 50% damage reduction. You would take half as much damage as you took from the point before as it continues to climb. So taking that 10% shield mitigation off of there is a big deal, and these should have much, much more longevity now.
Yeah. I suppose, Rob, when you're building around your Klingon fleet, I mean, what do you tend to favour? Do you tend to favour Kvex or Kvorts as your kind of mainstay, or do you now see it in the updated version of A3 that actually having a mix of both is the way to go?
Before the update, I really preferred a fleet that was mostly Katingas and Kvorts. Now, I think it would make a lot more sense to make sure you have those Kvex, because they need to be there to eat the damage for everything else. I would still have a back line of Kvorts. I would still have Katingas to make sure that my ships are turning right and that the mid-tier ships are being dealt with. I would still have Death Rights to make sure that the mid-tier and low-tier ships are being dealt with. And I would probably, in the late game, replace my sort of Raptors with the Death Rights. And then my fleet would be Death Rights and Kvex. They're there to soak damage and punch down. And then Katingas and Kvorts, which are there just to punch up really hard. And that would be kind of my fleet composition, the way I think of it.
Yeah. And so here, guys, you need to keep. We've said this in the first video. You need to keep that fleet, balanced now. You can't just afford to build solely Kvex, because if you do that, you can be countered quite hard by both the AI now, to be fair, because they tend to build a balanced fleet, and other players. So if you're playing against your friends and you tend to have, in the past, in the current version of A3, if you tended to build that one type of ship, if your friend knows how the counter mechanics work and knows how to punch up or punch down, they can quickly build often much cheaper ships to punch up hard at your heavy armoured ships. So things like the little artillery ships, things like that, can really punch these bigger ships quite hard because of the size of their armament. So it's always worth just keeping that real balanced fleet. And I think that's it for cruisers. So we.
Whoa!
Have I missed one?
No. I mean, the Kvex is literally one of my models, man.
Oh, sorry. It's the design of the Kvex. I apologise, Max. I'm so sorry.
You're doing me a dirty.
Go on. Design-wise.
So the Kvex is originally a design. Blah blah blah. Is a model originally designed by a man or a woman, I don't know, called Cleve, back in Starfleet Command 3 as bridge commander. And we had the original model for a while, retextured, but I didn't like it because it was really stuck out on the when you looked at it compared to the fleet.
Yeah.
So I decided to remake it and make it more in line texture-wise with the Vorcha and the Negvar. And I took elements from both to make it look more in line. And I tried to keep some of the really unique aspects of the design, like the fins sticking out of the side of the nacelles, the nacelles being slanted, and it being a more of a unified body rather than a obvious head and neck. I mean, if you look at the Klingon designs, the neck gets thicker, less of a vulnerability. Really kind of the same as the Federation has that issue.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to make it look really kind of like inspired by Negvar, but still got some Vorcha elements to it. So really designed around the same time as an advanced cruiser.
Yeah, absolutely. She's actually a great model, and I love the nacelles on it. Again, there's something about nacelles.
Yeah, no, that's the one part I liked about it as well. It turned out real nice.
Yeah, especially this sort of beautiful insert here was really, really good to break it up. So great model. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave it out on purpose.
No.
This is a model by Max, everybody. Way!
My heart, my soul. You forgot the Stalker, by the way.
Did I forget the Stalker? I did forget the Stalker. Thank you for pointing that out. Where is the Stalker? If we can see a Stalker, guys, point it out.
It's at the back somewhere. It was near
there it is.
Right.
There it is. Tom, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Stalker?
I always get the crap ones.
Sorry, I'll try to give you better ones, I promise.
That's right. There's really nothing to say about the Stalker. It's your heavy artillery siege ship, like the New Orleans. It has the siege mode ability. It has the siege mode ability to apply to multiple Stalkers, and it has a cloak. So you can fly in, undercloak, decloak, blow some stuff up, recloak, and fly away again, and just hope your opponent doesn't have any decloaking ships with which to murder your stalkers.
Shoot buildings.
Yeah, it blows up
Yes.
structures. It does it very well. That's about it.
Do you, so question for you and Rob, do you need heavy artillery ships now in A3?
Oh, if somebody builds a starbase, if you don't have them, good luck killing it. With the way that the damages are now, the way the damage all works, you're not going to have any ship that's very good against it directly at all unless you build these, and you're just going to sit there and it's going to seem dumb how strong it is.
Yeah.
It's a fairly consistent thing across not only stock but mods as well, that the way star bases have been designed and implemented, and just because of the way Sins plays as a whole, hard counters are necessary. And so I think fundamentally, as Rob says, if you want to kill star bases, and if you want to kill star bases without incurring penalties, and especially as they level up, you need siege ships. That's just the reality.
And Max, this is a really kind of bizarre design for a Klingon ship. I always
Not
felt.
mine. It's a legacy one.
Yeah. But I mean, it's very curvy. I mean, it's still got some of the features you expect of a Klingon ship.
It's not that surprisingly though. It's a FASA design,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of weird designs in FASA. Trust me. Look up the Klingon Fat Man if you want to see a weird design. And this is not a joke. The Klingon Fat Man is a serious design, and it is by far the ugliest Klingon ship, which also originates from FASA. So I'm not even going to try to figure out what amount of LSD the designer had when he was just making this.
Would this be a kind of ship you would expect to see in OTF 1 or 2, or something you'd steer well clear from?
I wouldn't say I'd steer well clear from it. It hasn't come up in the current ship roster, but it's definitely a design I would seriously consider because of the history of it being so long in the Trek community. And that's kind of the deal with all FASA designs. Funny enough, the Fat Man is going to show up in AOTF2 with some visual redesigns by a great artist called Atom.
Do you feel you could redesign this one to be less of an ugly duckling and more of a beautiful?
Honestly, I wouldn't change much. I'd just change the engines at the back a bit. I mean, overall, it's not that bad.
Yeah, you like this one overall?
It's different.
Yeah,
and different is not always bad. It's obviously still very Klingon, but it's got some different elements to it. You know, I mean, if you look at the Federation ships, you know, a Steamrunner looks nothing like an Intrepid. So, but they're still both obvious Federation ships, and I think this falls kind of under that same line.
Very very strange looking ship, but you heard it here first, guys.
It makes good booms.
It makes good booms. So that is the cruisers now. I definitely haven't missed any others. So I think that brings us nicely to the capital ships. Tom, I'm not going to give you a boring one for once. I'm going to let you start with the Vulture class.
The Vulture. Oh, what a lovely
That's not
vessel.
the Vulture, that's Gowron. So where's the Vulture? There's the Vulture.
I mean, he flies a
He
Vulture,
does fly a
so
Vulture. He does.
It accomplishes the same results.
Yeah.
So the Vulture is basically your what's the word I'm looking for? Battle cruiser. It has a good amount of utility. So it has the Inspire Honor ability, improving your hull restore rate and antimatter restore rate. Hull restore's not necessarily amazing, but the antimatter restore is always useful. Interestingly, it comes with the Grievous Insult. So if you are engaging an enemy force and you want the enemy force to not attack something, that's when you proc Grievous Insult, and it will force attack the Vulture and draw fire, whilst also repairing the Vulture itself. And so with a lovely string, which accuses your opponents of cowardice, which is a great way to get them to attack you, it's a good way to draw fire away from other targets. Glorious Charge just applies to itself, a bit like the Kvek, and I think this might be something we look at as well. You have an energy weapon cooldown along with a mix of other debuffs to self, which are varied. And I think definitely the shield mitigation on there is something we look at potentially as well. especially because of the way it scales upwards with levels not down.
Yeah, so we need to look at the shield mitigation on the Vulture, because the Vulture dies a little bit too quickly,
and I think that might be why.
That might be why. See, so Rob, for your favourite faction, Rob, you've not checked this one as well, right? So
I almost never use this ship because this ability's downside is too painful for me, and all of the upsides of the ship just feel like I would rather just have something else. I'd rather just have more firepower in the form of a Negvar or.
So I think similar to expect this one to change, guys, because we're still working. There's little things like this we're just tweaking from the faction. So this will probably change to turn rate as well, and not to shield mitigation.
Not shield mitigation.
So just watch this space with it.
Yeah, and again, shield mitigation mathematically 1% can be 20% damage.
Yeah.
And then the last ability is Polar on Torpedo. So
fantastic.
Whereas the Brel has a little pew pew that would ability disable other frigates, the Vulture's Polar on Torpedo can target anything and will disable abilities, warp engines, impulse engines, and weapons, as well as reducing the shield block. Which I'm curious whether if that's a buff that actually does anything.
It does.
It's not one I see very often used in other mods. So
it does work, apparently.
Okay.
I checked this when we put it in. But interestingly, this is because a lot of people ask me this question. There are very few abilities that tend to knock out dreadnoughts in the game,
and this is one of them.
This is one of them. So I had this actually propped against me by a Zermi from an old edition, where he managed to stop my Progenitor Titan from firing its Reaper Beam, which was very, very annoying because that's a 10-minute cooldown. So I was very sad about losing my Reaper Beam. So there you go, guys. Because it also has an interrupt built in as well. So it's a great ability, Polar on Torpedo. So I think once Glorious Charge is fixed, which will happen by the time you guys get the mod. Actually, the Vulture is going to be worth taking. Do you think
Vulture is going to scale upwards again?
Yeah. Do you think, Rob, you would take it when it's changed to turn rate instead of shield mitigation? Do you see yourself using Vulture?
Yeah, I use a lot of keybinds built into my mouse to do things like polar on torpedoes. When the Gortan had polar on torpedoes, I would use a built-in hotkey on my mouse that would basically, if it had a target, I'd hold it down and it would hit Q tab click Q tab click Q tab click as long as there was a target, and it would do this a couple hundred times a second, and I would fire it across all my Gortans on the entire enemy fleet and hit all their capital ships and permanently disable every capital ship in their fleet. I think polar on torpedo is an amazing ability, and if the ship felt like it stayed around long enough to fire 2 or 3 of them, I would definitely take that. Anything that can disable a Titan is amazing.
So there you go, guys. You heard it here first. So when it comes to getting the mods, you want some Vultures. Max, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Vulture class? Was this one that you worked on, right?
Nope.
Was this a legacy model?
Yep.
It's all the legacy. It's just all legacy, isn't it?
It's the Klingon models were just good. They were usable. They still hold up decently. For IOTF2, I've just recently built a completely new Vulture, but this one still holds up, and I actually use this one somewhat as an inspiration for texture style. But it's a lot of those legacy models, like the Negvar is also not mine. That they hold up. They're great.
So
Ravenous too.
When you like take a legacy model, do you need to do any tweaks to get it into Sins, or is it just a case of a straight import of the texture files?
Just make the texture files into Sins format, and it was usually good to go.
Lovely. I mean, she is a beautiful ship. I don't think anyone will deny actually that the Klingons have some of the nicest looking ships, especially with their patterned wings. And again, Max mentioned that when he was designing the Kvek, he took inspiration from these slanted nacelles on the Vulture class, so you can see that feature.
No. They were from the original Kvek.
The original.
That's what
Kvek.
I meant. The original Kvek had it as well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the original Kvek bases, but the Kvek's engine are actually 90 degrees the other way around.
Yeah, are they? Did I miss that? I did miss that.
Yes, they are.
If you could, let's go back. Let's have a look. Oh, it is the other way around.
Yes.
There you go. See, even I got that wrong. Okay, Vorcha
I mean, how long have you been looking at these models? I mean, are you
Too
one of those
long.
people? Are you one of those people that plays in icon mode?
like a decade of not paying attention.
But no, I think the Negvar as well is one of the legacies. The Corral I did, I retextured, and the Fekler as well. But we'll get to those when we get to those.
I mean, Rob, you get a boring one now. Well, not that boring, but you get the Ravenous class, Rob.
It's a nice looking one though.
I think the Ravenous is actually pretty nice. It can heal itself. It gives your ship's energy weapon cooldown. It can take planets. I would keep a Ravenous or two in your fleet for sure. It's I guess it's not like a super interesting ship, but everything it does is good, and it's accessible very early on. So,
where did it go?
And it can cloak your entire fleet, which is just cool.
Yeah, for escaping, if your opponent neglects detection and you push that button, they're not gonna be able to chase you, and sometimes that can be the difference in a game, not losing your fleet when you're caught out of position.
Yeah, yep. So very, very cool starter ship. Max, should you tell us a little bit about the model?
Again, legacy model, but it's the design of the Sting Tongue from FASA. Weird name, I know. It was used in Legacy as an Enterprise era model, despite the fact that it's a very obvious TMP era ship.
Is this appearing in AOTF 1 too?
No, AOTF 1 it does not. Well, we have a sort of looking like it ship, but not directly that. It might appear in AOTF 2. Let me check the roster real quick. Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this. Echo and Hobbs will kill me if I speak out.
Well, you can just blame me.
Let me check. Let me check. Klingon split. Yes, the Ravenous is actually, funny enough, the same role in Armada 3 in AOTF 2. It's fine. It will be a new model, though.
Yeah. So a lot of these models, guys, if you like these models, I keep saying it, do check out AOTF 2 when it releases, because it's still a way off yet, believe us. But I think, a lot of people ask this, while STA 3 was done first, having all of the Stellar Parallax mods is fantastic. You're going to see different eras of Star Trek. If you're a real Star Trek fan, then you want all three of the mods in the long run. And also subscribe to our ship packs on Stellaris as well. Cha-ching.
It's only one. I mean, we still haven't got around to the second
one.
We're
working on it. There will be more for Stellaris hopefully in the future as well. So we're a busy team.
It's an issue of divided attention and lack of manpower, really. So if you've got model porting experience in Stellaris, let us know, and you'd actually be really useful to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the Ravenous, your starter ship, but a pretty good one actually. Let's go on. I'm just going to grab these randomly. So let's go on. Tom, should we talk about? I don't even know how you pronounce this properly, Max. How do you pronounce this?
Feklar.
The Feklar. So Tom, the Feklar.
The Fecker.
The Fecker, or the Hammerhead, as I like to call it. So.
The Terran battlecruiser from StarCraft.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the Fekler again has not really changed all that much. There is some. I don't remember if it was for this upcoming release or the previous release when we were discussing the Corral. We mixed up some of the abilities. And I at the time didn't know that the Ion, Storm, and Repulsion Wave were, I believe, Armada 2 features on the Fekler.
I think all the abilities on this ship are literally copy-pasted from Armada 2.
Yeah.
I believe we I don't know if compromise is the right word. We reworked a couple of the abilities in terms of their positioning so that the Corral became a little bit more useful. It acquired some of the abilities. I think one of the abilities was swapped over from the Fekler. To boost the Corral. But the Fekler is your aggressive support ship. It's your debuff ship, essentially.
It's the equivalent to the Nebula, if it's...
So
yes,
the Ion Storm is a nice damage taken per second, in addition to max speed, turn rate, and acceleration debuffs.
I love the Ion Storm ability. Just putting that out there, that ability is very strong, and it's probably the main reason to use the ship. You fly it in front of your fleet and cast it as your opponent flies towards you and tries to get into your fleet while you're in hold position, and they just get stuck.
Rob, you'll love that ability in AOTF 2, because in AOTF 2, you can click an area within a radius where you want to cast it.
That sounds dope.
And then transfer power for just literally transferring over some antimatter to another ship. Want to keep those Polaron torpedoes firing? Here, give the Vorcha some more antimatter. repulsion wave, which I think we're going to do a little bit of experimentation with and check the targeting parameters. If you like shockwave torpedoes on the Titan, sending things flying, the repulsion wave should do this simply in a localized area of effect. And lastly, a little bit of ability duplication. It has the same cloak fleet ability the Ravenous does. So if the Ravenous goes down or if the Thekla goes down, you have a couple of different ships you can cloak fleet with.
Max, you'll take us through a little bit about that. I mean, this is probably one of the more interesting designs because it's
yes,
kind of a bit
there's a bit of a story behind it. So for one, this is a model by Ad Mormon, who built this for Armada 2, Armada 2. The design dates back from Armada 1 and reappeared in Armada 2 and also in Starfleet Command 3, and it is one of my favorite Klingon designs of that era, which I actually recently redid the model for. Which was shown to our Patreons on the behind the scenes channel, which they've been looking at. And wow, the noises.
They're pretty consistent, aren't they?
Yes, and it's a really nice design. It was designed, I think, originally to counter the Nebula.
Yeah.
And it is just a beast. It's got the nice forward head, and I retextured Ad's model, and well, I'm just looking at this, it makes me think like, wow, the remake I did is really great. And yeah, it really looks like a something that fits into the timeline of the Vorcha, but is obviously a different ship. It's very different. It's which also helps it stand out in the Klingon fleet.
Absolutely. And that brings us nicely over, Rob, to the sort of sister ship in a way, but the other sort of science, if you can call it that, vessel, the Corral class.
Yeah, this is one I'm not as familiar with, except for the one ability that when I build these, I build them for the one ability that gives energy weapon cooldown. I know it's got a call in. I believe it can heal ships, and it has it has the supercharged injectors, and then it has its final ability is the one I always use. It's the battle chant. When I build this thing, I build it for battle chant. I love more damage output.
Funny enough, the battle chant originally is supposed to be on the Thekla in Armada 2 and 1.
It is, and this is where we did the swap because we wanted to obviously honour Armada as best we could with the Iron Storm, but also we had a problem with the Corral, just not feeling that great. So it has the battle chant, but then all Klingon Warriors battle chant, as we saw from the DS9 episodes with I'm trying to remember now what the episode was called. Do you remember the episode, Max?
I don't know what it's called. It's the one with Core.
Yes.
It's the one where Core is like old and no, not Waves Warrior. It's one where Core is basically or was this the one with this the one with where Martok got back in the battle after he lost his eye, and he was really careful, and they had to save that Katinga.
Yeah, and Worf had to challenge him.
Yeah.
That was good. That was a good episode. I like that episode. Anywho, do you want to tell us a little bit about the model, Max?
Again, by Ad Mormon. Rest his soul. This was a design from Armada 2 originally, which he updated model-wise, and I updated again texture-wise and slightly model-wise within the cells. It's supposed to be a TMP-era Dreadnought. It will be appearing in AOTF 2, although again a completely new model, which will have some redesigns. It's supposed to look one of those old, bulky things, like something you'd see out of Klingon Academy, a TMP-era Dreadnought, which in this day and age has fallen a bit to the wayside because it's too slow and its purpose is no longer being filled, and it's just got pulled out of mothballs, to fight the Dominion War.
It's got a lovely bloom from all four nacelles, which I really love as well. I really, really love that.
I mean, that was really an item you saw in fastest ships and in thingy ships as well. In Klingon Academy were like multi-nacelle ships, single nacelle ships, which and of course big chunky ships flying about. So that's what this is really.
Yeah,
it's a big boy,
and beautiful patterning as well on the wings. Beautiful.
That was on me.
There you go. That's all Max there. So that's the Corral. Tom, we come to the. I can't pronounce this one. Is it Sukjach? I think it is.
Yeah, you got that right.
There you go.
Sukjach.
Yeah, you got to get that frame. The carrier. The ugliest carrier ship.
Excuse me.
Do you want to tell us about the Sukjak?
What is there to say? Let's see. In terms of just the way the ship operates, it's your carrier. I would say it's your counterpart to the Typhon, but the Typhon kind of does everything better, so I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna
the
say
Typhon's just straight better.
It has a boarding pods ability, which I think is pretty much ripped from stock. I think it's exactly the same ability that's on the Corsair. I would have to go and look at the ability code, but based on the info card, it looks to be about the same.
Yeah.
You then have Righteous Fervor, which just adds extra strike crafts and reduces the weapon cooldown. Reduces the weapon cooldown of your strike craft. You have a Magnetize ability, which is another one that's ripped from stock off of the Dunov. Nice bit of tech going on here, the direct opposite of the Klingons. Magnetize, which targets an enemy vessel and disables abilities on the target, but also causes strike craft to fly into the ship and do damage.
It's like magnets them in, they explode against its armor.
This can be applied to everything except Titans. And then lastly, Fighter Refit, which applies to self and boosts damage output and armor on the strike craft. Yeah. So in theory improves their survivability a little bit and increases their damage output. It's a very, I'd have to say it's a kind of one-dimensional cap ship. I don't know if there's much I would say in terms of its recommendation. Capturing isn't necessarily the be-all and end-all in Armada 3. Magnetize, I think, could be an overlooked ability. But
I think she's very strong because the Klingons really do lack the sort of punch the Federation have with their fighter squadrons. And we saw obviously that in the show, really, when obviously there was budget constraints, but the Federation used, especially in Deep Space Nine, like attack squadrons in quite a number of the Dominion battles. But you didn't really see the Klingons with kind of strike craft, mainly down to budget, and why would they design something like that? Most of the Klingon scenes seem to be copied across a few battles in DS9. Barring that really excellent episode with the Defiant and the Tractor Beam and the Vulture, which I loved, when they were trying to save, was it Golda Cut, wasn't it? And the
Papa Council.
The Papa Council. Yeah. That was a great episode. So if you haven't watched it recently, you should watch that. But yeah, it's an okay ship. But the Klingons generally not so good with their strike craft. It's not really their thing. In fact, their squadrons are manned by convicts in the mods. Yeah, they're convict squads. Yeah. There you go.
Oh yeah, that's the boarding pods. That's what they got the convict. Oh
yeah, what? Yeah. So there you go.
That's a model built by me though. It's the
Sukjak is a model built by you. Go on.
Yeah, it's completely unique. It's a design from Armada 1 and 2. Seen, of course, iconically in Armada 1's intro, where it took where they were boarding the Borg ship. Where to send out the pods. But we kind of left those pod holes open to make it more like hangar bays.
And I love that. I love that you can see through it.
it will also appear in AOTF 2. Although in its original design with the pods closed with boarding pods, though you will not be able to capture enemy ships, but you will be able to wreak quite some havoc on them.
I mean, Rob, how do you feel? From a fleet point of view, do you feel the ship has a place, or is it something you'd likely just send off on its own to sort of harass?
I would use it to harass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it in a fleet. The thing is, I don't feel like the Klingons have a huge weakness to strikecraft anyways, because the Death Ride is a good prevalent ship in your fleet. So yeah, your opponents will have strikecraft superiority, but you'll have Death Rides to counter that. And these can be useful, but I think you're better off if you're going to use them to harass with them. Otherwise, you'd be better off with more support cruisers or more Negvars.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned that in the last stream with the Typhon, especially that carriers, while they do have a place sometimes in some fleets, the better thing for carriers to do is actually to go on those flanks and disrupt structured construction to attack where the enemy doesn't expect you to be. So it can be quite handy to have a carrier and a couple of light carriers just to go harass and blow up the enemy's research, because as you know, in A3, if you destroy the research stations, they actually degrade the research, so they will lose access to that research. So it's very much a kind of more of a harassment thing, the carrier, and not something you'd probably want to. I mean, you could send it on its own. The Typhon's quite capable, but you might send a few escorts with it on a side flank, for example. But probably not something you'd see in the mainstay of the fleet. Does it have a place? Absolutely, it still has a place in the game.
Yeah.
You just got to use it differently. And we said, very much A3 now. You and Rob has demonstrated this to me many times. You're actually better off splitting up your fleets to attack multiple flanks. So if you tend to death ball, or you're used to death balling, which happens in a lot of Sims mods, you can actually lose quite badly in a large map in A3 because, as Rob has proven to me, as I said many times, he's everywhere and nowhere at once. And it can be incredibly hard to keep up with that kind of. So as soon as you've moved your big giant death ball to one world, he's attacking 3 other fronts, and that can be incredibly frustrating.
You kill all their tech with smaller fleets, and then even though your fleet's smaller than theirs, their main fleet, their death ball flies into you with no armor and no weapon upgrades, and you chuckle as it melts hilariously into dust.
So guys, that's something. If you are going to play with your friends, don't death ball. Do split out your fleets. There's nothing wrong with having a large fleet when you have the advantage, but generally it actually pays now to not do the whole I'm going to build one giant fleet and go from well to well. If you are playing against another player, especially that knows what they're doing, especially with the new counter system, having a good groups of mixed fleets and things like carriers harassing the flanks is the way to play to get the best result in the long run. So that's the Sukjach. We are going on to the very mighty now. Last but not least, Negvar. Rob, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Negvar?
Yeah, so earlier Tom mentioned he thinks the Vorcha is kind of the battle cruiser or whatever. This thing's the battle cruiser. Don't build right now until this thing's the beast. If you're going to build a ship just for combat purposes, this thing's the thing you're going to build. It has 2 really good AoE direct damage abilities. It has the ability to kind of have better maneuverability itself, and it has a debuff to enemy fleets. This thing just punches so hard. As far as like a ship that has direct damage output, between ion cannon and what's the other one called?
Radiolytic isotopes.
Yeah, radiolytic isotopes. It's this thing will debuff your enemy, shoot the crap out of them, cause them to have debuffs to their weapon cooldown, and it's very maneuverable. This thing is, like, as far as a single ship goes, it's a beast.
It is an absolute beast, and very, very famous in Deep Space Nine Max as well.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a bit about the model? Legacy. Didn't need to change it. It was that good.
It was that good. I mean, I did some retextures for the non-refitted version, the green version. But that's about it. It's a good model. It's excellent. It's accurate. It's great. It's only missing the turrets on the top of the wings, where you can kind of see the two little empty green blobs. They're supposed to have dual barrel turrets on there.
Yeah.
But that was model detail when we were making Armada 3, where we were like, yeah, that's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great ship. So that's all our capital vessels. We now go on to the wonderful world of heroes for the Klingons. There's going to be lots of. I can tell the sound of it's coming now. But we're gonna start with the first hero you get. I'm gonna go to Tom. Tom, let's talk about Kern, because he has changed.
Yes, Kern is Tin Kern, as we should refer to him. Worf's brother doesn't quite share the barrel grudge that Worf has. Instead, he actually captains his own starship. So you could argue that Kern is the more successful brother, despite the perceived depression that is displayed in DS9.
That should have been an attempt.
Look, it's just Worf just has allergies for barrels. It's not his fault.
Kern commands a cavort vessel. I believe I don't think we've. Are we doing the hero armor type? I can't remember if we actually reached a conclusion with that. I think at the moment he's just got
It's Sam's capitals.
capital ship armor type, hasn't he?
Yeah. But I think the big thing about Kern is that he just died so badly in the original edition compared to the other Star Heroes. So he has had an absolutely stonking armor buff on him. He has 22 armor on his Cavort.
It's because his character, wanted to die.
Once you've got all of the tech, unupgraded it's 18.
Yeah, but I mean, 22 armor is pretty good.
Definitely improvements to his survivability. He's got a good loadout of abilities. Sharpshooter is, I believe it's buffed to his own
weapon cooldown.
Weapon cooldown, but I think it also applies. This is where I think this is where the info cards don't work very well.
Yeah.
I believe that those debuffs are what applies to the weapons as they fire.
Yeah.
So those are debuffs actually applied to targets hit by the weapons that Kern fires. Again, I would have to look in the game code a little bit. The duration listed is 15 seconds.
It does actually apply though. It's a chance. It applies that debuff to the enemy, so it doesn't apply it to him before everybody goes It actually, if you take it,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it doesn't apply to Kern.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that isn't displayed very well on the info cards, and this is where I highlight the duration of 15 seconds. Given that it's a passive, would be how long those debuffs apply to the enemy vessel for.
Yeah.
And so, consequently, if you're wanting to improve your chance to kill a specific target, having Kern attack that target, because it slows down acceleration, slows down turn rate, reduces shield mitigation. It's a very good. It's a limited debuff, but it's a good debuff because it's not like an AOE. It is single target. It's what.
As long as it's on a single target, 6%.
It's a chance. It's a chance on
target.
Yeah, it's a chance on hit on weapon hit. So the problem with Sins, and I think Max will agree, is the info card system isn't exactly fantastic, and it's really hard to show you what an ability does.
Oh yes, that's definitely true.
And so all these reds here, you'd think that Kern himself is taking all these. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is, as it fires his weapons, there's a percentage chance that on a successful hit in Sins, that the enemy will take all these debuffs, which is quite fantastic. Which is why the shield mitigation in this case isn't actually a bad thing, because it's on that what he's shooting at. So it's not too powerful. So when we talk about shield mitigation, obviously that's quite a powerful stat, but in this case it's not too powerful because it's applying on a percentage chance. And unfortunately, what doesn't show you, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the percentage chance is, but it doesn't show you in the info card how that applies, and that's always been one of our problems. I think we probably, for the heroes, this is one of the things we want to do before we release, is you've seen that we've updated all the effect descriptions for all the other classes. I think we need to go back and just do a final pass on the heroes with the strings, just to kind of tell you as players what these abilities actually do, so you don't look at them and go, oh, actually that's not a good ability, and end up missing out. But this is why we do these videos anyway. And then go on.
The next ability is summon attack wing. So a bit like how Picard has a frigate summoning ability, Kern also does, and it scales up quite well. So once it's I think level 3, you can have a chance to get Kavex, for example.
Yeah.
So if you get Kern leveled up quite early in the game, you can potentially have late game heavy cruisers before you've even researched them. So that's potentially useful. And then lastly, attack speed, which applies to everything actually, in terms of the first 3 abilities. This is where the separation of gaps in the info card indicates different ability groupings. So the first 3, max speed, acceleration, turn rate, applies to everything in the AoE. Then the frontal damage reduction and chance to evade is what applies to Kern himself.
Yeah. And he I think with his now at full max, with his 22 armor and his frontal damage reduction, his chance to evade, he is extremely tanky, just like Voyager is with her ablative armor, just in a different way. So Kern is he's a really good hero to have in the start of the game now, and he's really going to do some work for you. I mean, Rob, how do you feel about him? Yeah, he will scale up.
Well, I didn't understand how Sharpshooter worked. That's actually something that got past me all this time. That being known, I think Kern's amazing.
Yeah, really, really good.
That's really good.
And he's in the Cavort model, which we've already talked about. So, Max, I'm actually going to choose you to talk a little bit about this next guy. The famous Chancellor Gowron.
Man, the abilities has changed so much. Well, I don't know what the hell they do.
We could run you through the abilities, but I just wanted you to do the voice when we go. How about this?
No,
we'll tag team this. We'll tag team this.
No. Oh God, why would you do this to me? So the Forge is a model that came from Legacy.
All right, I'll do some of the. So first of all, he has Raiding Party, which is a fantastic ability. Gowron is a very different type of hero to other heroes in the mod. I think
he's very angry and he likes to give speeches, so in a way it's similar to the cat.
Absolutely, but this is kind of, you could just throw him into an enemy gravity well, and what he will do, he'll target that enemy planet and he will slow down their ship building time and their structure build time. He's fantastic for that, right, Rob? He's absolutely fantastic for that.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about Gowron a little bit because people don't like Gowron very much, and anyone who's played like Age of Mythology who's used the Pestilence ability, this is kind of like that, but you can use it. It's only a 30% effectiveness, but you can use it over and over again to slow your enemy's production. That can be the difference between victory and defeat when you're fighting in an opponent's shipyard well. But on top of that, his next ability along steals resources. Or no, this is the culture one. So this can get you in to basically stop your opponent from spreading their culture, which is great. Then one of these abilities actually steals resources when he's attacking the planets. Which one is that?
That's actually the same
Raiding
one.
Party.
Is it Raiding Party as well?
Party. Yeah, it does that as well. So he gets credits earned as he attacks the enemy planet. Which again,
I see it.
This is where the info card just doesn't really tell you what is.
It does. Credits earned.
It does, but it doesn't really tell you how that works. So yeah, when he's attacking,
you just get 100. That's fine.
That's fine. He just gives you money for attacking enemy planets because he's Gowron. So
that's actually significant. It really. To fly him in and just attack a world and stop your opponent's production and steal their money is just fantastic.
Right, Max, you've got to do the yellow text in this one in Gowron voice.
They're strong, Commander. Take a team of raiding parties down to the planet. You damage their industrial facilities and return to the ship at once.
Oh wait, that was Palpatine. I'm sorry.
Kapla!
Kapla. There you go. See, we got Max involved. And Tom, you get to do the How Gowron one.
Do I?
Yeah.
No, that's the one that I at least know, for fuck's sake.
Oh, go on then, Max. We'll let Max do it.
I, Gowron, leader of the Klingon High Council, have decided to show you. Gibeah, that which truly makes us Klingon. Note, used against hostile planets.
Oh dear me. That's brilliant. So oh dear, I'm almost crying. That was very good, Max.
I think I've had a few too many drinks to listen to him do that.
Of course, the last ability, the glorious taunt. And you are as weak and frightened as a Kahom, and there is no honor in killing a Kahom. You are like a toothless old Krishna cat cowering in a corner.
Trying to frighten us with your roar.
This is what I was writing about, guys. I said we're going to do the Klingons this week, and the guys were all getting excited. So before this stream started, literally I had so much Gowron I can't even tell you. Oh, I'm crying. It was great.
Glorious Taunt is, of course, a debuff to your opponents in fighting in range of our glorious Lord and Saviour, Chancellor Gowron, reducing enemy shield mitigation, reducing their chance to hit, reducing their weapon range, reducing weapon cooldown.
That shield mitigation is pretty reasonable because it's 2%, but applying to anything around him, it's still very powerful. Gowron's a good hero.
Level. He is a good hero.
You want him in your fleet, guys. That's the thing. So for those sort of naysayers that said, "Oh, Gowron, he doesn't really seem to do much,"
which is a lot of people.
Which is a lot of people. We get that comment a lot. He is amazing. You just don't realise how good he is. So guys, we're telling you, trust us. We explained it to you now. We've given you the accents and the voice. We want you to get into that Gowron spirit. I want to see Gowrons in the chat.
It's Gorkon now, okay? It's Gorkon.
Gowron might fight without honor, but he is still a terrifying sight.
Guys, if you love
Well,
Gowron,
I mean, with eyes like that.
if you feel like me and you're watching and you love Gowron, just put Gowron in the chat, guys. If you agree now that Gowron is the way to go, we'll see if we get any Gowrons in the chat in a second.
Also put your favorite Gowron quote in the chat.
Yeah. So that's Gowron, Chancellor Gowron. I mean, Glentro says, is this a new update coming to Armada 3 or is it a new mod altogether? Well, it might as well be pretty much a new mod at this rate because it's been completely rebuilt. Balance-wise, mobility-wise, it's great, and we've really enjoyed it on the channel. So this is the final edition to answer your question, Glentro. Last but not least, we come on to General Martok. Tom, do you want to cover this one?
I mean, I'm happy to do so. I do love General Martok, savior of the Empire.
Hail Martok!
Leader of the Empire! Martok is a powerhouse of a hero. He has some amazing damage output, an incredibly resilient ship. Ion Blast does several levels of damage, according to distance, I believe it is.
That's correct.
So the closer you are to Martok when the ability is used, the more damage is dealt. He has a passive AoE aura, supercharged weapons, which improves your damage output, your weapon cooldown, and your chance to hit. So, all that DPS. Let's have a little bit more. And then lastly, to the death, an ability which we recently, and by recently I mean before the stream, we're looking at and wondering, what the hell does this do? We still don't quite have an answer. So expect that one to have an overhaul soon.
Yes. Yes, it will target friendly ships, probably more than 6 actually, and do something good to them.
Somehow.
Because I don't really know how much better he can make ships, because he's already making ships really good. So this one,
he's already one of the best heroes in the game, like maybe sitting right behind Wayun. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a think about this third ability, and we'll get back to you.
We'll get back to you. Answers on a postcard, but it will be good by the time you get the mod. But yeah, Martok is a massive force multiplier, and just the supercharged weapons, guys. If you're going up against like Romulans, which have a lot of chance to hit debuffs. Martok makes a big difference to the Klingons if you're fighting those pesky Romulans. So, have him in your fleet, try and keep him alive. He's really going to boost your fleet. Definitely a massive force multiplier. And that brings us to the end of the capital vessels. But that's not the end of the story, because we get to the Titans. And I'm going to go with Tom, are you again, on the Jack... I can't even say this. Is it Jack Eng? How do you say it, Max? Is it Jack
Eng?
Jack Eng.
It's pronounced dishonor.
No, it's not. It's the most honorable.
It is. How dare you, Rob?
Dishonor.
How dare you?
Dishonor.
It is the most honourable vessel in the Klingon Empire. To sacrifice yourself to destroy your enemy, there is no greater salvation for those who have been dishonoured. The Shockwave ship it's a very one-dimensional vessel. You fly it into your opponent and you explode. I've had unimaginable amounts of fun over the years with the Shockwave ship. The reactions I get from people, and in fairness, my own reactions, when you are confidently pushing into an opponent and feeling really good about yourself, and then as you jump into a system, you spot one single lone ship amidst everything that has just jumped in, and then watch as everything you just jumped in explodes in a blaze of horrendous, horrific glory, is simply satisfying. The Shockwave ship is fantastic. It is a lot of fun to use. It is always a threat and should be carefully watched out for. It doesn't really have an ability roster. You only need one ability on it. It does level because it's a Titan. We can't change that. It's going to level. But power to engines gets you in there a little bit quicker. that's about it. That's all there is to say. A glorious vessel for a glorious empire.
Yeah. Just a pre-warning, because a lot of people ask this question. It does have an in-system warp ability, which will get you even closer if you need to get across the galaxy quickly. However, if you do that, it does disable the shockwave engine for a little while. I think it's from memory. I think it's about 25 seconds. Yeah, 25 seconds.
I don't know if it goes down with levels though. No, it stays the same. Just increases the range.
Yeah. So it's good to use, but just bear in mind if you use it to warp in on top of a fleet, you've got 25 seconds, and this thing is very, very fragile, as you can see. So it will die very, very quickly. It has to have a weakness, and that's its weakness. So yeah, the Shockwave ship. And Mr. Sorry, Max, I didn't even mention you there. The model. Sorry, the model.
Yeah, it's Ad Mormons again and again retextured by me. It's one of the ones I did way long ago.
Would you ever use this model again, do you think? Because this was a freighter, right? Originally, I think.
No.
No?
It wasn't a freighter. It was designed for the Shockwave ship from Armada 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The same design.
So would you ever reuse this model again, do you think? Or do you think...
If I have to make the Shockwave ship again, I'd probably remake it from scratch at this point.
Yeah.
It's an old model, pretty low on detail, and it's
Yeah.
I prefer the concept art version, which never was, which looks way nicer, which I actually started working on at some point, but never finished it.
Yeah. And then, Mr. Saunders, we have the Beast.
This is the ship. If you have honor and you think you can win through skill and not through cheese or deception, like a Romulan, like a cowardice Romulan, this is the ship you build right here. Because this ship is a beast, like he just said. So first ability to talk about Shockwave Torpedo. This thing works so good in conjunction with the Ion Storm on the Corral. Your opponent flies in, you Ion Storm them, their ships all get stuck in the Ion Storm and clumped up. You fire that torpedo into it, they all go flying back. They can't break your beautiful space phalanx. As your Klingon fleet sits there, the Bastion shield sits there, soaks up all the damage. You take no damage, you're sitting there throwing firepower out like crazy. Your opponent's trying to get in there, trying to get on top of your fleet. They can't do it. Ion storms are everywhere. Shockwave torpedoes are flying. And then I guess the rest of its abilities are still good if we could hover over that third one.
This one here? Oh,
yeah, that Storm Fury Torpedo. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of direct damage through that. Which is nice as well, and then you have Overwhelming Assault, which just lets you throw out more firepower. This ship just vomits disruptor fire, vomits torpedoes, throws your enemy fleet around. It's my favorite ship in the game. It's the best ship in the game.
Well, I'm gonna say like the Scimitar is the best ship in the game, right? Because
Boo!
Romulan bias.
Cowards.
But
Like, who would actually use Thaleron weaponry? That's just, inhumanoid.
what he's saying is Bane is duplicitous. I like it. So Max, let's talk about this absolutely gorgeous, fantastic model.
All right, so this beauty was designed and built by Michael Wiley, where we he came up with the rough designs. I gave some pointers, and really that was it. Wiley is brilliant when it comes to ship designs, and he turned it out brilliantly. Texture style he did is a bit of a reminiscence to the Kronos one, which was more of a teal color rather than the green, and it's just bristling with weapons.
It's so good. I mean, just the torpedo launcher at the front is just, oh my god.
I'm just a fan of the two big guns on the wing angles and the four little turrets on each wing. And then there's turrets underneath the head and on the side of the head. And
those guns there.
under the ship, it's got guns upon guns upon guns. It is the ultimate epitome of Klingon warship design
And honor.
Yeah, it's very honorable because you see what's going at you. It's not like some shitty gray squared thing that can cloak or something, that just shows up. Now you'll see this thing coming. It'll come at you straight face. It's not some cloaky Riemann shenanigans.
It's not cloaking. It's not cheekily flying in right at the last second to blow your fleet up. This thing just gets there, gets stuck in, and blows your fleet up over time very honorably.
At least when it warps in, you know what you're in for, right?
Well, that's the thing when it walks in. I always have pod playing on my mind. It's like, boom! Here comes the boom. Ready or not? How you like me now? Because this has got
X gon' give it to you.
Yeah, exactly. And just all those really aggressive songs. Just that's what it epitomizes as it comes in, and it is beautifully textured. It is beautifully made.
Best ship in the game.
It's such a good ship. Such fun. If you're playing the Klingon faction, you have a choice between Titans. They're both, I will say, in all seriousness, they're both fun in very, very different ways. And the great thing about Armada 3 is you can actually have used both Titans in a single game. It is entirely possible. And many have done it. So, not going to tell you which one to build. I know Rob will say the Sword of Kalis. I'm sure.
The Sword of Kalis. The other one's for cowards.
Tom will say that the Shockwave is just as fun.
You can use both.
Blow up their fleet with the Shockwave ship, then mop them all up.
Then crush them with the Sword of Kalis. Go on, Tom. You said
they're both perfectly viable tactics. Don't let Rob dissuade you otherwise.
Dishonor.
The threat of dishonor is one that
must
doesn't
be
really
taken
hold
serious.
up. Doesn't hold up in court, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Dishonor.
I'll tell you, it does hold up in Klingon court.
Thank you, Max.
You're welcome, Rob.
So we're going to move on now to the defences quickly. We've got the Tiger Core battle station.
Which model is super inaccurate, by the way. I recently found out when we found good pictures of the studio model. It's a legacy model, but hey, it's the best we had at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Will this be reused in OTF 1 or 2? No,
we'll make a new one.
We'll make it. So that's what I mean. You will be building this station again for OTF
the accurate version.
Yeah, the accurate version. So, Rob, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Klingon Starbase? Is she actually worth building?
All star bases are worth building now. The way the damage and armor types work out, the only thing that's really good against these is essentially siege ships. Yeah. Everything else pretty much is not that good against these, and you're going to sit there and you're going to shoot at it and you're going to wonder why it's single-handedly killing your fleet. It's because you didn't bring siege ships. These things are monsters. They're super, super powerful. This one in particular doesn't have too many things that make it overwhelmingly unique, other than the fact that when you get it close to dying, it can blow up like a shockwave ship, and you know what? I'm okay with that. It doesn't fly around, so it's acceptable.
You could die with honor, guys. That's right. You could detonate your starbase in a very shockwave-like explosion. So just be very careful around the Klingon starbase. A lot of people forget about that ability. It catches them out. Let's be honest. And it has Ion Storm as well. Rob mentioned Ion Storm earlier and how impactful that is as an ability. So really, really great to have these starbases. They are a lot more expensive now. I think, Tom, you still want to do a few tweaks, obviously, to the star bases as well, just before we release. But
yeah, it will be.
They're pretty good. They're very expensive though, so you're going to see more of the outposts. I haven't built an outpost today, but as we mentioned on the last stream, you're probably going to want to drop outposts as opposed to star bases when you're doing your initial expanse, and then you'll probably, because of their cost, only want to put star bases in key defensive choke points. I think it's fair to say, Rob.
Yeah, these are expensive. They're a big investment, but they will fight an entire fleet by themselves if they don't have siege ships.
Yeah, so they're great. Let's quickly dive in if I can find where I put them. Yes, I put it somewhere. No, that's the orbital refinery. That's the propaganda. It's right here in front of me. So we've got the turrets. Tom, do you want to take us through the turrets?
So at the moment, the Klingon turrets follow the same principle as the Cardassian ones. They're an all-in-one turret. They've got all three types of weapon damage on them. They're one uniform turret. They're really very tanky at the moment. Really very strong. Free logistics. Klingon turrets are likely to remain relatively unchanged. What might be overhauled slightly is their damage types. And possibly things like their range, depending on sort of testing when you contrast them with, for example, light artillery. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say. The abilities are not going to change, so they've got overload turret and damage control mode. so you can disable the weapons and massive hull repair if you need to. And then overload cannons, another variation of the I'm just going to improve all of my weapons at the cost of damage reduction and things like that, which, given it's a static turret, I think is fine.
And then we have the orbital command station, which actually, so the Klingon turrets don't start off having fantastic range. What makes them have better range is the general's command ability from your orbital command citadel. So when you build, similar to the Cardassian ones, if you're building turrets, you almost always want an orbital command citadel to boost the abilities of your turrets even more, so they become even more powerful, and you can see that there from the stacking buff. So they have you can combine that with the overload cannons, which really does put a lot of damage output out. They're all on autocast by default. This is a passive, obviously, but the weapons are all on autocast, but you could manually trigger them if you wanted to with keybinds and things like that. It's purely up to you. And then you have a call in. I did call one in earlier, which gave me, let me see, we've got 2 Chuk Bez, a Valcon, a Kvek, a Raptor, 2 Kveks and a Raptor. So that's what I managed to call in earlier. So it's another way of getting some ships quite some early on. Some reinforcements quite early on. So generally quite good to have. It does cost you quite a bit of cost. There's like 3,200 credits for that ability, quite a lot of dilithium as well as minerals, so just be aware if you're using those. These aren't on autocast, so you do need to manually trigger these. And then I just want to mention, I always do this, we go onto the comms array, and the comms arrays, people often forget that the comms arrays actually have abilities. And this one actually I needed to fix.
Isn't that the propaganda station?
This
That's
is
the culture station.
That's correct. The propaganda station, or comms arrays, or whatever you want to call them. This is it here. I think you designed these, Max, didn't you? Did you?
No, Legacy.
Legacy again. So it's a Legacy model. And this one is actually really good, as you can see from this giant area here. What this does is this increases the speed and acceleration of your ships. So if you can imagine, if you did build 2 or 3 of these in a gravity well, you could actually just create a path of max speed, which anything that gets your ships to the fight quicker, personally, in my opinion, is amazing. So
it's amazing objectively.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And often, what I do tend to find is a lot of players will hotkey their comm stations, especially if you're like the Romulans or your Klingons, because you want to basically use their abilities for getting things, like in the case of Klingons, out of the gravity well or across the gravity well really quickly. That tends to be something people hotkey. And the Romulans obviously will come on to in a later stream, but they have an ability to scan enemy wells, which is just really, really strong. So don't forget about your propaganda stations. They're really important. But I think we've done enough talking and showing off models. I think we need to go do some pew combat, right? That's what we all want to see and hear and love doing. So
a quick trick about hotkeying the stations, though, just because this game doesn't have the ability to kind of add to a hotkey the way like StarCraft does, what you'll want to do is select the station, like basically, so hit your hotkey, hold shift, and box over the propaganda stations you want to add, and then remake the hotkey. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's like basically how you add things to hotkeys in this mod, because there isn't the hotkey support that there is in other RTS games.
And Bane forgot to turn rampant militia off, so there we go. Something else I need to fix at some point. We will I'm just going to set this up, guys. So Rob, can you just give, while I'm setting this up, can you just give some general playstyle advice for the Klingons if the guys want to try and play the Klingons as a faction against, say, the Federation?
Against the Federation, sure. So the thing about the Klingons is you're going to win in the mid-game if you're going to win against the Federation, and you're going to win in the mid-game because your Corvettes counter Corvettes, which is nice, you're basically punching even. Then your light cruisers punch up, so they can kind of pseudo-counter, they can counter Intrepids, and they can kind of pseudo-counter Excelsiors, and then your Death Rights are going to kind of mop up everything in the sort of lower areas. So but what you'll do is you'll get your heroes, you'll get your Ravenuses. If you can, you squeeze in a Feckler or a Corral or 2. And what you're going to do is just try to win in the mid game. You'll get your economy set up, and then you'll just try to overpower the Federation player in the mid game. And that's how the Klingons really play. Is they play as a very sort of aggressive expansion, sort of economic faction. It's all about getting your economy established with the minerals, capturing the neutral asteroids, and holding them with your superior sort of early mid game ships, and then leveraging that into a sort of a mid-game, late mid-game win before the Federation gets into that ultimate late-game economy and just is unstoppable.
Absolutely. So, shall we get moving? I think we will.
Yeah, let's have a look at some battles, and also let's have a listen to some of the new weapon sounds that have been implemented, especially some beam sounds for the Klingons and some pulse sounds for things like the what is it? The Cavort.
Now, I've got to remember, did I actually... Oh, that's a good point. I need to find... this one needs to not blow up, actually. I need to bring this one back, otherwise it could end very quickly for us.
This is dev mode. You can spawn more.
I can spawn more. I can always spawn more, right?
Zoom into the Cavort.
Yep.
The Cavort now has the accurate weapon sounds from TNG Redemption. I think it's on the just to the left of the Titan there.
There you go.
Yeah, zoom in.
There we go.
And unpause.
If you wish.
Dun 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 dun.
It's funny, in AOTF2 this thing is a fast cruiser where it will outspeed pretty much most things.
just watching over there, the Sword of Kalis just opens fire.
And you also heard the new Katinga torpedo sounds as well.
Oh, some of them are cloaked. This is what happens when I leave abilities on auto cloak.
God, I love those traveling phasers.
Look at that. Just look at the firepower coming out of that sheer...
It's a beautiful ship. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that.
So you see all the guns actually fire here. It's amazing.
It's like a fleet by itself. Just so much firepower.
I think we're running out of Federation, you know. I do. We might need
As
to
it should be.
bring some more.
No, just keep it zoomed in. Just leave it for now.
Yeah, okay, we can do that. Let's see how long Excalibur is going to hold in there for.
We're showing off the Klingons. Forget the Federation. Let them be destroyed.
Let them be destroyed.
As it should be.
Oh, I was doing.
That shockwave torpedo.
Well, that's way too many.
You doubt the Sword of Kalis, my friend.
Let's see that death ray in there. Oh, see, there's a Katinga. Can we find a Katinga? I can't even see a Katinga.
I can hear the torpedoes from the
I can hear the torpedoes.
Unless you applied them to other ships as well. I mean, I'm assuming you imported them as a new sound bank.
Yeah.
Or 3 new.
You were worried about the Federation surviving. The Federation are getting absolutely decimated here.
Sword of Kalis. Good ship.
There's that Galaxy class.
There was that Galaxy.
Class. There's literally just look at the Typhon. He's just like on his own, taking what is immense.
Not for long.
Klingon fire. I just can't believe how much firepower coming in.
And just like that, the magic was gone.
So how are we feeling about the Klingons overall? Do you think, Rob, in this new edition of Mod 3, can they go toe to toe with the other factions?
The Klingons are awesome. They're my favorite faction. They're basically the best faction for timing attacks, and they will do them extraordinarily well. If you do a good timing attack on the Klingons in the mid game, and your opponent doesn't scout or doesn't react very well, they're going to be smashed.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as Rob mentioned in the comments, we are going to post up some spreadsheets and we're going to make some nice infographics. Hopefully, or I plan to make some infographics of what ships are good against what ships. Hopefully, Tom and Rob can work with me on those. So like kind of like faction cards, if you like, which will just give you a little bit of a help with this edition, which will be downloadable from the Armada free page as well. The faction cards. And will be in PDF form. So hopefully that'll be really, really helpful just to helping you understand the damage types, because I know that's something we've not always been able to show you with the mod. As you can hear, there are new effects, there are new sounds. You know, Max has done a fantastic job of putting in the travelling beams across the mod, and as you've seen, there's a lot of thought has gone into even the research on the Klingons. And the overall way the ships counter, you've seen the differences with the Raptor, you've seen the differences with the Katinga and the Death Right, how they punch up and punch down compared to the Federation ships. And that's the theme you're going to see continued from faction to faction to faction, where it won't be just a carbon copy, that each faction will have certain ships that punch down or punch up in a strange way compared to, say, the Federation, which is generally your all-round kind of mixed fleet. There'll be lots of specializations. And just announcing today, really, our next stream is actually going to be about the Borg, which I am super, super excited about, because I think out of all of the factions, the Borg are probably the one that's changed the literal most. I think.
Finally, we can have Borg in multiplayer without people complaining. Silence, Max. They'll still complain, but I'll tell them off for being dumb, and then I'll beat them.
I think the Borg are going to be really, really good in multiplayer. We've worked really hard to actually make the capital ships in the Borg feel really good, but you're going to see that in the next stream. So I think all it really just leaves us all to say goodbye. So from myself and Max and Rob and Tom, I think we're going to say goodbye, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Later.